Hey guys, what's up? It's Robin, and I'm here to talk to you about the squat. The squat is an essential movement that everyone should be able to do. The ability to break from your knees downward and open up your hips is something that everyone does as a toddler, but eventually forgets as they age. For a better quality of life, it is essential to be able to squat all the way down as you age. We can add implements to make the squat harder or easier, and the barbell is a great way to improve your core, improve your lower body muscles, and can help reduce the risk of injury if done correctly. Your first piece of equipment for a front or back squat is going to be the barbell. Barbells comes in many shapes or sizes, but your main two options are going to be a power bar and a squat bar. A power bar is 28 millimeters usually, and it is 45 pounds or 20 kilos. The squat bar is much longer and thicker at 32 millimeters in diameter and is going to be heavier as well at 25 kilos or 55 pounds. Both are perfectly acceptable. Many just prefer the thicker squat bar for its comfort and less whip, but you need to take into account what federation you're in if you're competing. Squat racks are a key element to being able to squat heavy weights, because if you don't have one, you'll have to clean it off the floor. To set the squat rack appropriately, set the J-hook at a comfortable height that you can lift off with ease. Too low and you'll be expending too much energy on the unrack, and too high will increase risk of injury and you can lose your brace on the unrack. Warm-ups are essential to prepare you to do any of the big three. You can also treat the warm-up as a checklist to see if anything hurts or has more aches and pains. You can warm the area up more. The hip 90-90 is great to check your internal and external rotation of the hip while also warming up your hips for squatting. The single leg RDL and the hip airplane is a great way to check hamstring tightness and to check the activation of your glute. Behind the neck lat pull downs and behind the neck scrape dowel presses are a great way to activate your shoulder blades and be able to learn how your lats should feel underneath the bar before grabbing a heavier bar. Core and glute activation is incredibly important while bracing. I do suggest doing some glute thrusts or some hip airplanes to activate your core, and doing something like the McGill 3 to activate all three planes of your core. Loading the barbell correctly is very, very important. If you load over 100 pounds more on one side, that could lead to tipping, which could injure you or someone else in the gym. Be careful. Stance and grip all depends on how you like to squat. A good rule of thumb is to have the same foot positioning and hip positioning, as well as hand positioning on the same sides of the barbell. Almost everybody starts with a regular barbell squat. That's also known as a high bar squat. To feel safe and secure underneath the barbell, you need to make sure that your back and your core are tightly secured together. Having an even grip on the bar is important, but making sure that your back is centered on the barbell can help you feel from tipping any further. There are different types of variations of the back squat, but we'll touch on that later. When you've unracked the bar and stepped an appropriate amount away from the rack to be safe, it's ready to start to squat. Before you start your descent, you should grip the bar tightly in your hands and pull down onto the bar into your back to make sure the bar doesn't roll around as you squat. As you start your descent, you'll want to be able to sit back into your hips while at the same time driving forward into your knees while keeping your toes and heels down as much as possible. The hardest part of the squat is being able to stay tight at the bottom. Keeping tension in your lower body, your core, and your upper body is essential to make the ascent much easier. As you rise up from the bottom, you want to be able to connect your knees and hips from your center of gravity easily. If you float away from your center of gravity at any point in the squat, the descent, the bottom position, or the ascent, it can really make or break your squat. You can tell where your center of gravity is by the weight distributed on your feet. To start, you want to have even and equal pressure on your toes, midfoot, and heel. As you progress in your squat, you'll be able to tell if you need to add more front pressure or back pressure depending on your hip, knee, and ankle mobility. A good brace can come undone at any point in the squat if you haven't stacked your upper body and lower body correctly. Maintaining the correct tension in your upper back, lats, and hands while opening up your chest and making sure your rib cage is pointed and stacked to your pelvis is important to have an even brace throughout the squat. We're now going to go through some common form mistakes and how to correct them. Your feet should stay connected to the floor from your toes to your heels. If you're rocking back and forth, that probably means that other parts of your body will start to move around. This causes A, eventually changing the center of gravity on the barbell to your body, and B, that makes your brace too challenged and causes you to lose your brace. If you cannot physically keep your heels or toes down, that might mean you have an issue with hip, knee, or ankle mobility. Both mobility before you squat and loadable mobility accessories are important to help you stay mobile. Both mobility in the ankles, knees, and hips before and loadable accessories afterwards are very, very important for a squat. You can also point your feet out a little bit to increase hip, knee, and ankle mobility. Rocking back and forth on your feet might be because you have too much knee flexion. If you have too much or too little knee flexion, that will change if the bar is aligned with your center of gravity. You might not be hitting depth because of your hip angle and knee flexion. If you're squatting with your knees too far forward, you'll have to squat way deeper to hit depth. To fix this, all you need to do is sit back more into your hips and heels to change your hip angle to achieve depth. Pelvic anterior tilt is defined as a forward tilt of your pelvis, resulting in increased flexion and extension of your lower lumbar spine. For squatting, this changes your pelvis angle, which means you cannot stack your rib cage above your pelvis appropriately, which will result in more shearing on your lower back. As we start our squat, many of us forget that we've even braced, making it harder to keep and control that brace at the bottom. And as I've mentioned before, if you lose tightness at the bottom of a squat, it makes it harder to rise up from that squat. You need to remember two things while you squat. You need to, one, remember that you are braced throughout the whole entire squat, and two, you actually need to make the brace tighter and tighter. That way, when you're at the bottom, you can explode up all the way to the top of your squat. Now, we've been talking about the standard barbell squat, aka the high bar squat. Many powerlifters for competitions prefer the low bar squat. The difference of placement on your back will determine the high bar or low bar squat. High bar sits either on your traps or in between your traps and the tops of your shoulders, while low bar squat will sit more on your rear delts, so lower on your back. In most powerlifting rules, you cannot have the bar sit lower than your rear delts. Staying mobile and flexible is important for doing any sport. I wouldn't recommend any static stretching right before, but being able to dynamic stretching and mobility before squatting and also doing static stretching afterwards is highly recommended. Next, we're going to talk about safety in the gym. This part is normally boring, but please listen through it as it is always important. Always ask for help if you can. If you're at a commercial gym or a powerlifting gym, someone there will most likely be able to spot you. If you are too nervous to talk to somebody at the gym, or you're at home training by yourself, please use the appropriate spotters on the sides of your rack. Don't forget to always listen to your body. Our minds can differentiate aches versus real pains. If it's a tightness or soreness you can manage before lifting, always warm up until it feels less and less. If it is a real pain, we suggest consulting a professional. And just like that, you've learned how to squat. We've gone over equipment, squat technique, improper form and how to fix them, and most importantly, safety. But keep in mind, none of these tips work unless you do. So get in that gym and get that squat PR. Thanks for watching, guys. Please let us know if this is the content you like, and let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to cover. See you later. Smash that like and subscribe button! Ah!